Morning to you. Welcome to hour number two of the Art Lewis Show here on WSGW. We're going to spend that with a Michigan author this morning. He is Landon Beach, has a new book, and we will find out about it as we say good morning to Landon Beach. Good morning, Landon.
Hey, good morning, Art. Great to be with you again, old friend. Thanks for having me on.
Great to have you. Great to have you. How many books have you written so far?
10 that have been published, and I'm writing number 11 right now.
And these books, do they all have a common theme?
Yes, the common theme is that they take place on or around the Great Lakes region, or they have characters who are from Michigan and the Great Lakes region. And so I always wanted to give a nod to my home state, Michigan. And I always thought it was a great place for setting stories that not a lot of people were doing. And so I think anybody from the Mitten or around that area will definitely enjoy them.
So before we get to this new book you're writing,
sure.
What led you to become an author? Were you always a writer?
I was from a very young age. And I, of course, went to college at the U.S. Naval Academy and then became an officer and served my time. I was an assistant professor at Purdue University and then a high school language arts teacher for 15 years. But I always had in the back of my mind what would happen if I put my work out there. And I've been able now to completely leave teaching and am a full-time writer. And so it's been a great journey.
And, you know, it's one thing to have an idea for a book. It's another thing to put the words on the paper.
Yeah.
How far along, when you sit down to write a book, how far along in the story that book tells are you when you first start out? In other words, the day you sit down to write that book, do you know what the end is going to be?
Yes, the way that I work is I outline, but I outline in a very specific way, which means I do a ton of work up front on the characters. What are their wants? What are their needs? What is the arc going to be for the main character? Where do they start at the beginning of the book? How have they changed by the end of the book? And I have the opening ready to go. And then I always write the ending because that is the true experience that you want to provide for the reader, which is the climax. And
so,
then,
wait.
You
write the ending before you write the book, in effect.
Yeah, I write the beginning, and then I write the end. And then what it allows me to do is I have a goal to steer towards. Because a lot of writers get in trouble, Art, is they don't know where they're going by the end, and so they start writing, and then pretty soon they've written 6 or 7 chapters, and they're so far off course that a lot of them abandon the book, and I never wanted that to happen. And so what I do is, what the fun of it is then, is from the beginning to the end, I have an idea of where we're going, but it allows me to, and it's an overused phrase in writing, to organically evolve the plot.
Yeah.
And it doesn't box me in. I will say this, though. With mysteries, I outline the entire book because you have to know who done it up front, and then you have to know all the red herrings and where you're going to put in the misdirection. So mysteries, I outline the entire book. But for my other books, I go with the beginning, end, and then see where we're headed to get to the end.
So in writing a book, from the time you get the idea and you sit down at the computer to start typing till you have a finished product, how long does it take you to turn out a book?
Well, what I like to do is I like to get in about 1,000 words a day. And so if you're writing a 90,000 to 100,000 book, that's typical for where many of my books land. Some are shorter. I think The Sale was 65,000 and Narrator was 123,000. So that's about maybe 3 or 4 months for the first draft. And there's probably months. I mean, for narrator, it took me a year and a half of research to get ready to write that book, and then 4 months or so to write the first draft, and then you've got to let that sit, and then you come in and do draft 2, draft 3. I think I got up to draft maybe 5, 6
wow.
for narrator. Yeah.
So what changes when you do that? What causes all those changes?
Well, you see all the mistakes that you made, and it's funny, but every writer will know this, that one character that had blue eyes on chapter 2 suddenly has green eyes on chapter 47. And,
okay.
Yeah, and you put in, a plot twist that maybe you forgot about 80,000 words before that was really minor, and then you realize, because it evolved and I found a better way to do it, I need to go back and adjust that. And that's where we call it the snowball effect, rolling down the hill, because all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to change page 47, page 180, page 234, and page 300. And it's a pain, but it is necessary. But you have to let it sit to get that kind of emotional distance away, because if you went to publishing right after a first draft, no writer would ever want to change anything because it's so hard to find your mistakes and say, oh shoot, I've got a ton of rewriting to do.
And so at what point, or do you take your manuscript and give it to someone else to read, either to proofread or at least get an idea of their thoughts on the content?
Right. So my wife, bless her heart, has always been my first reader, and I always give her the book after my second draft, and she takes a look at it, and then we have a meeting. She gives me feedback. We go over it, and then I write another draft and maybe one more. So by the time we get to maybe draft 3 or 4, I have it in a place, and then I have a couple of trusted beta readers that I send it out to, who are brutally honest with me, and they give me their feedback, and then I make adjustments, and then I have another group of advanced readers that I'll send the book out to, and then I get their feedback, and then by that time we're getting close to the finished product for publication, but it's a long process.
And when you say draft, you're not rewriting the whole book. You're going into chapter 3 and changing this, that, and the other thing, and you're going into chapter 7 and changing this, that, the other thing, right? You're making adjustments.
Right. Draft can mean a lot of different things. Now, one time I had a book where I eliminated an entire character because that character did not really fit in with what I thought was going to happen. And so taking out an entire character, that's a major rewrite. And so you're not just going in to make adjustments, you're changing the entire plot. I had a beginning one time too that I talked with my editor about, and I was, the first 3 or 4 chapters we had to scrap. So then you're rewriting 3 and 4 chapters. But to answer your question in a general sense, yes, when a writer says a new draft, they're not saying, well, let's just throw out those 100,000 words and start all over again. But it depends on how well that draft went. Usually, though, because of the work I put in ahead of time with the months of development and character, I never really have a situation where I have too many major rewrites after the first draft.
Do you ever know, the last question before I have to take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about the new book, but have you ever had a thought about a book, sat down, started the book, and discarded it and said, nah, I'm not going to write that?
I have, but I've always come back to it. For instance, the book that I'm writing right now, I've had many starts on it. It's the last book in the Great Lakes saga, and I set one book on or around every Great Lake, and the story just wasn't right. And so I would put it aside, and I think I've written 3 or 4 books in between, and now I've come back to it. But I've never had one where I said, I'm never going to do that one. Yeah. I haven't had that happen.
Never say never. I got it.
Right.
Brandon, hang on. We'll be right back. We're talking to Landon Beach, and he is an author of note in Michigan, has 10 books out, working on number 11. And we'll talk about that when we return.
My name is Angie Guja. I've been an...
This and final book in the Great Lakes saga. And what I did with that one is I set each book on or around a different Great Lake. So the wreck was on Lake Huron, the sail was on Lake Superior, the cabin was Lake Ontario, the hike was Lake Erie, and this final one, called The Bay, is set on Lake Michigan. And I'll throw in a little pitch for Cyber Monday. It is discounted right now to pre-order for $2.99, and I'm going to have that running from now until Wednesday. So if your listeners would like to check out the entire saga and get the next one that's going to come out on September 1st, 2026, The Bay, you can get it at a discount for the next couple days.
All right. And you have a website too, right? Your website is
landandbeachbooks.com.
Yep. So, I think the series shouldn't end there, and I think you've jumped the gun using the title "The Bay," because you need a Saginaw Bay book, not just the Great Lakes, but the bays, because there are a number of them. Grand Traverse.
Well, some of my Sunrise Side Mystery series take place on Lake Huron, and I think that some people would find that pretty close to where they live around your area, which is close to where I grew up, sir.
Yeah, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Gladwin, Michigan.
Oh, all right, yeah. So when you sat down to write your very first book, which was which one? Which series did you start with? Was it one of the standalones, or was it a series book?
Yeah, it was the standalones. It was The Wreck.
And you start down to do that. Did you have it in your mind that you were going to have series of books like the Great Lakes Saga, Sunrise Side Private Investigator Mystery Series, and a couple of standalones, Snow and Narrator? I mean, did you have that in your mind, or was it just, let's get one book done?
I did. From the very beginning, I wanted to have a Great Lakes saga because I thought that it was rarely written about, and it was a great place to set stories. And my idea, which I have stuck to, which is one book on or around each Great Lake. So there were 5 in that series, but they're all standalone novels, and so you can start them in any order that you want. And then, as I think we talked the last time, for the Sunrise Side Mystery Series, that just started off with one, which was Huron Breeze. And my editor said, why don't you try a mystery? And so I came up with the idea. And while I was writing that, I said, you know what? This character has a beginning, middle, and end. And I think that I could show that over a course of 3 or 4 books. But that's all I wanted to do. So it was really kind of one big story, which has a beginning, middle, and end, and it ended up being 4 books. And then, of course, you mentioned the standalones, and Snow, which is the new one that is out.
That's the newest one, not Narrator.
Correct. So Snow just came out on the 25th of November, and that is yet another genre, because I really like to write standalones and prefer to write standalones. And that is kind of like an R-rated Hallmark Lifetime Christmas novel.
Holiday romance, it's described as.
Absolutely.
And that's a little bit out of your comfort zone, isn't it?
I don't know if it's out of my comfort zone, but it's a little bit different. My wife has been asking me for years to write a holiday romance, because around the holidays we love to watch the Hallmark Christmas movies and whatnot. But I wanted to kind of bring maybe a thriller aspect to it in terms of putting in some twists and turns. But the premise is really simple. It sounds like a Hallmark novel where, while stranded in a log cabin thousands of miles away from home during a blizzard, an up-and-coming New York City advertising executive learns her family's secret past, which alters the course of her high society life of glamour and power. And she actually gets stranded, Art, in a cabin that is on M20, which is, of course, about maybe halfway between Midland and Mount Pleasant, a stretch that I have driven 1 million times growing up, and, that is not too far away from you. I mean, you take M46 and you're there, right?
So the interesting thing about it, though, when you read any of these books, you're not going to see a single name you recognize, because you make all this up, but yet they are familiar in terms of their feel and their context, right?
Right. So there are a few things in the books that people say, absolutely, there are references to direct things in Michigan, but to take an artistic license, I will set it in maybe a town called Hampstead, Michigan,
Right.
Which does not exist, but it allows me the artistic liberty to put buildings where I need to, but they all have the feel of the Great Lakes and Michigan. But in this instance, there are many things like the Tridge in Michigan, the state police posts that are around Midland and Mount Pleasant, because a big challenge in this one was, what if there was a snowstorm, and what would the emergency response be? And so you're going to get a ton of stuff that people will instantly pick up on, and a little nod and a wink in this novel.
Yeah. So I have to go back to snow for a minute. You wrote this holiday romance. Your wife suggested it. Were the next words out of her mouth, "I am not your lead character"?
Absolutely. The lead character resembles my wife in some ways, with her determination and her kindness, but absolutely not. But she did enjoy the story and the way that character progresses. This one is 30, and she's an up-and-coming advertising executive who gets snowed into a cabin and with her late grandmother's best friend, and she finds the secret history of her family and rediscovers a love, something that, was essential to who she was, that throughout the course of the novel, she rediscovers her love for it and overcomes kind of her fear, anxiety, and painful memories of why she abandoned it early in life. And at the same time, it has that hallmark aspect because she's supposed to be flying to Greece to spend time with a crush that she has, a rich and powerful coworker who's about 10 years older. But while she's snowed into the cabin, she meets the grandson of the woman she's staying with, who is around her age, and he's a national park ranger from the Upper Peninsula. So you have that tension throughout as we progress in the story.
Is it fair to say that even though not all your books are what we'd call thrillers, or crime, but there is a mystery in every book? There's something that you have to follow the whole book till the end to find out?
100%. I think any author that has done his or her work takes a book and there's a mystery either in the plot, and there needs to be one with the character, because that's why we love fiction to begin with, is that characters change, and not a lot of people can change in real life. And so when we actually see characters change throughout a book, or things that we put them under pressure in that create plot elements and twists, that's why I think we gravitate towards storytelling and fiction. And so yes, every book of mine is a quick read, and they're unpredictable. And that's why I think I like standalones, because you go in not knowing anything, and that takes you on a ride throughout the novel, and hopefully you have many pleasant surprises by the end.
All right, hang on. I got to take a break here, Landon. We're talking to Landon Beach, an author with Michigan ties, and you can find out more about him online at LandonBeachBooks.com. His latest book, Snow, described as a holiday romance. We will be back after these notes. First of all, how was your sleep last night? Because, we're asked to do more for less these days. So when you go to bed, and you theoretically spend a third of your life there, you need quality sleep. You can get it with a quality mattress from Sanitary Mattress. Now, you can visit all the so-called sleep stores, or you can rest assured the mattress you're using is manufactured right here in the Great Lakes Bay region to your specifications. Your time in bed may be cut short by today's demanding world, but you can still get a quality good night's sleep on a Sanitary Mattress. They feature 1-hour window delivery of your mattress to your home. And by the way, if you have an RV or a boat, Sanitary Mattress will custom make a mattress for you, something the box stores can't do. Visit the Sanitary Mattress Factory and Showroom at 5343 Janes Road in Saginaw, just east of the Harry Brown Airport. Visit them online at sanitarymattress.com or call them at 989-753-1757. Sanitary Mattress, serving the Great Lakes Bay region since 1935. Lakes. So, Landon, we're going to take you out of the off the roll, put your teacher hat on for a minute. What would you tell? I'll use me as an example. All right, I do not think in the written word. I think in the spoken word. And the spoken word and the written word and the syntax and the way it all goes together are not the same. How do you take someone who thinks in the written word, in the spoken word, and teach them to write? Oh, I can hear the wheels turning.
When I used to teach creative writing as a teacher, one of the exercises that we would always do is we would look at authors that the students enjoyed. And again, I would try to introduce them to areas of fiction that really piqued their interest and getting them to look at that and read. And I'll make a pitch for audiobooks in a second here. But I would say, well, what kind of books do you want to write? And we would look at the genre and find some of the writers. And a lot of it started with, I would take a short story by someone and I would say, okay, let's cut it off at the 3/4 point and you write your own ending. And so it was a little bit of an imitation of style, but learning from the masters and then taking it and crafting it into your own work. And so I would never start with the intimidating part of here's a blank page and have at it. The pitch for audiobooks would be, if we were lucky enough, when we were young, we were read to. And audiobooks, it's the only part of the publishing industry that is growing right now. Sadly, paperbacks, hardcovers, and paperbacks, hardcovers, and ebooks are down, but audiobooks have had double-digit growth in the past 10 years because I think that people really have found, and reawakened their love with listening to someone read them a book. And so another thing that I would have students do in my English classes and also creative writing was to say, hey, it's okay to listen to a book as well, and process it that way through the spoken word. Like you said, storytelling originated through stories around the campfire back from the beginning of time.
Yeah. That's interesting you say that, because I'm a subject of that. By that I mean, one of the more recent books I read was Prince Harry's Spare. And at a recent book sale, a used book sale at a library put on, I found the audio version of it that he read. It's 11 CDs. It's a lot of listening. But I was curious to see if I come away with the same feelings after reading the book and then after hearing the book. Do I feel the same about some of the content? I haven't gotten there yet, but I find it curious because you're right when you hear it. And again, I'm a person of the spoken word. That's what I do. I have to be honest with you. I'm not a good writer, mainly because I just don't like to do it. I do it when I have to do it, but I'm not a good writer. I give speeches and I tell people I'm not a speech reader or writer. I'm a conversationalist. So I may put 4 words on a note card and then do a whole speech around those 4 words. But that's what I do.
Right.
And it has always puzzled me as to whether or not I could sit down and write some long-form piece. And I just, I think if you don't have it in you, if it's not buried in you deeply and you have a fire for it in your belly, I would imagine that would be a real chore. For you, I don't think it's a chore. I think you love every minute of it because that's what you do.
It is difficult, but it is a passion that I have. And one thing I would say for you, if you're kind of, questioning that, if you ever could make it from the beginning to the end, I found with writers that I mentored and taught, was that if they were passionate about the idea and the subject matter and the characters they were creating, they had a much better chance to make it until the end. And that's where I think a lot of writers go wrong, is that they don't do a lot of prep work up front in terms of figuring out, well, what do I want to write about and why? Why would I want to write about that? And who would care if I wrote about that? And what character could I live with for the next year as I take this from the beginning until the end, when it's going to be published and out to, readership that's going to hopefully enjoy your work. That's the kind of thing. So whatever you do, my friend, make sure it is something that you love and that can sustain you throughout that writing process.
I wonder if there's some similarities between you and me and how we research, because what I mean by that is the job I have doing what I do is 24/7. I am always, because I do a lot of open shows where I don't have topics and people call in, and I have to be prepared for whatever they're going to talk about. I may go to sleep at night and at 2 o'clock in the morning, for whatever reason, wake up with some thought about something I need to know. I might get up, go to the computer, get what I need, and then go back to bed. You ever do that? You ever had an idea about a book that you have to jot down, you have to make a note about, no matter when it is?
We're kindred spirits, sir, all of the time. And it is just interesting to me. You can't explain it. You can't really, forecast it or see when inspiration is going to come and where it's going to find you. But when it does, I do know this, that if you do not act on it at that moment write it down, it does not come back. I mean, rarely, it might come back in another form, but it'll never be that genuine, pristine thought. And so, yes, I always tell everyone, when it comes, write it down.
React. All right. I got to take one more break and come back, and then we'll finish up talking to Landon Beach.
Hi, I'm Katie.
Stores in a minute, and the audiobook versions of my books, read by Hall of Fame audiobook narrator Scott Brick, are located wherever audiobooks are sold. But there's also a link on my website to bookshop.com, and that's a place where you can order online, and a percentage of those sales goes to independent bookstores. And in terms of Michigan bookstores, there's a bookstore in Glen Arbor called the Cottage Bookshop that holds all of my books. And if you are a bookstore in Michigan and you're listening to this and you don't already carry my books, you can contact Thunder Bay Press, which is located in Michigan, and I have a setup with them where you can get my books from them to stock your bookstore. Because, Art, I still think that local bookstores are the lifeblood of a community. And yes, my stuff is available online and digitally, but also I want Michiganders to be able to walk into bookstores in their hometown and pick up copies of my books and read about their home state, which, is, you and I have said, is not covered a lot in fiction.
And I have to tell you, I mean, to me, and again, this is me speaking, there's nothing like holding the printed word in your hand. I'm not, I have to spend so much time on a computer doing what I do. The last thing I want to do is sit down and read a book on a computer. And
I'm with you.
I mentioned I have the Harry book just to see the difference, but I'd still prefer to sit down and have something in my hand. And maybe it's old-fashioned. I'm not young. I'm 82. That's what I grew up doing, and that's what I want to do,
And that's why it's important to me to reach all the different age groups of my readership. Everyone has their own preference. There's some people that just love audiobooks, and I want to make sure that they have avenues to get the book. And there are others that love to have their Kindle and their phone. And then there are a ton of readers that are still that look at my books that want the physical copy. And so I want to make sure that that's valued too, because I'm a little old school in that manner as well. I love audiobooks, but I still prefer having the physical copy in my hand when I read.
So right now you're writing The Bay, which is going to be your next book.
Right.
How many more ideas do you have in the can, or do you? Or do you have to wait for the next idea before you start writing again?
I've got a lot of them, but two in particular after The Bay. And as I'm sitting here in my home office looking at the mountains of books that I have in certain stacks for each project to research. It's kind of intimidating and exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
But there are two that are percolating right now, and I can't wait to get to work on them after the Bay comes out. But right now, for the holiday season, and we're in the big push right now. Today's the 1st of December. Snow is